heart. The focus every day to move forthright in our manner to build a progressive and developing country. Now, our desire is for a Bahamas with a confident, skillful, and productive workforce. We want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country with a brilliant, visionary action plan ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. We encourage like-minded Bahamians to participate with intelligent and honest contributions. After all, my friends, we have a country to build. We've got jobs and industry to create. We've got a people to inspire and empower. And generations of born and unborn Bahamians, we the people must protect and plan for. And if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Today on Hard Copy, just how is it going for the new government? We'd like to know. We got views from others. We're going to get some views today from former Senator Darren Cash. He's going to be with me for the 2-hour run today on Hard Copy.
What are your travel plans this summer? The Ministry of Tourism invites you to visit one of our many unique family islands and explore the Bahamas like never before. Eleuthera, Exuma, San Salvador, and many more offer exciting vacation packages with affordable airfare, room rates, and exciting things to do. Andros, Bimini, Cat Island are to be considered too. This summer, do something different. Do something bold. Do something uniquely Bahamian. Travel to the family islands and rediscover the Bahamas. For more information, visit myoutisland.com.
At Ron's Electric Motors, they repair and rewind all major brands of electric motors, including water pumps, generators and the generator's back end, welding machines, electric lifts, air compressors, battery chargers, and more. They're equipped to handle up to 850 kilowatts and rewind up to 450 horsepower motors. They're conveniently located on the corner of Wolf and Clarence Roads and are open weekdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays till noon. They offer 24 hours emergency assistance. You can reach them at 242-356-0249.
Ready for some good living? South Seas Estates just off Bacardi Road. Lots 75 by 100, 96,000. Duplex lots 80 by 100, 130,000. Multifamily lots $120,000. Call 362-1214. South Seas Estates, and be sure to inquire about beachfront and marina view lots.
Boy, this year flying by quick, eh? It'll soon be Christmas.
That's right, and I haven't even started saving yet.
Girl, what you waiting for? Why you don't join BOB's Christmas Club account? They give you higher interest than any other bank. So by Christmas, you'll have lots of money to buy presents for them 3 little rugrats.
That sounds like a great idea. How much do I need to open it?
Only $20, but you have to open it before June 30th.
Bank of the Bahamas Christmas Club account. Get more merry for your money. Only at Bank of the Bahamas, your bank of solutions.
Executive Printers. We're professionals. At Executive Printers, we do not participate in trash talk. We concern ourselves with the accuracy and security of your laser check. That is why we put 15 securities on your laser checks. This is not trash. This is fact. It makes fraud almost impossible. Call us today at Executive Printers at 393-5011 or email us at sales@epbahamas.com. That's sales@epbahamas.com. Executive Printers. Laser checks. We do them right.
Driving on West Bay in rush hour? Hard. Getting a new car to enjoy the ride? Easy. Carting the kids around after school? Hard. Getting a car to fit them all? Easy. Get an easy auto loan from Commonwealth Bank. Super low rates, fast 24-hour approval, no loan fee, and no payments for 2 months. So come to Commonwealth Bank, and your next car is easy. Commonwealth Bank. Terms and conditions apply.
And now, here's a message from Bishop Neil C. Ellis.
In this season, my brothers and sisters, you need people around you who are going in the same direction. You need people around you who want what you want. You need people around you who are prepared, come hell or high water, they are standing with you. But in this season, you need to shake yourself of people who are just dreaming you, wearing you out. People with small minds and jealous spirit should not be welcome in your circle in this season. You need people around you who are going in the same direction. You need people around you who are prepared to help you carry out your assignment. And you need people around you who are prepared to stand with you when everybody else turned their backs against you.
Every time I listen to one of the former members of the government, it's always an insult to the Bahamian people. I'm just a regular Bahamian.
I'm a man voted PLP my whole entire movement life.
Yeah.
And I couldn't support you all this time around.
Yeah, we lost a lot of support this time, no doubt about it.
When all that money went missing in road traffic, I never gave a comfort.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question.
The taxpayers' money should give an account people's money.
So I'm interested in how our people are going to move forward. And so you look at the Bahama dialogue when they said, all of these things, how we wouldn't unseal the deal. Unseal the deal, unseal the deal. You're hiding, unseal the deal. The Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, always said, we never asked them to seal the deal. That was the lawyers for the investors. Well, they denied that. They said we were hiding and cloaking and misleading. And they...
Are you begging investors? It's disgusting. Disgraceful.
What you're describing...
You missed my point.
No, I'm missing your point. No. I'm not missing your point.
One. That's okay. They can see plenty Jack in the box.
I ain't too much for the Jack in the box. I don't think you just jump up all the time.
No, and I don't jump up all the time.
Oh my goodness, the 28th day in the month of June, Wednesday it is, 2017. As you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic, we have rainy skies on the outside, mostly cloudy conditions right now, 89 degrees here in the nation's capital. There's a low tonight of 78, and there's a 40% chance of rain or even higher later on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by Haji St. Albans Drive. That's your everything store. The Bank of the Bahamas, your bank of solutions. Assemblies of God, the 62nd council gathering underway right now. And of course, Mount Tabor's Inspiration, Bahamas Foot and Ankle on Blake Road. Super Value, the All Bahamian Supermarket, Rocky Farms Nursery on Sea Breeze Lane. And Water and Sewage Corporation. Also by the Ministry of Tourism, travel the islands this summer, go island hopping. Echo Water, the official water of Hard Copy. Commonwealth Bank, your new debit card leaders, just check them out. They got good rates and you'll love it. Cool Tech, the Air Canoe experts on Tonic Williams Darling Highway. Bahamian Brewery and Beverages. Also, Super Wash, open 24/7 around the clock, 11 locations. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. Ron's Electric Motors Power to Wolf Road. Executive Printers on Jerome Avenue. And McKinney Media Group Limited. Consultants, advertisers, public relations experts. We are here to serve you. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. You can call Hard Copy today at 325-0235 and guess what? You can also WhatsApp and text. It's 376-9234. And yes, today on the show, we have Darren Cash, former senator in the Hewitt Ingram administration. And Darren Cash is going to be sitting with us today because we want to talk about what's really going on. Doesn't it appear that a lot of things are going on that you really don't really have clarity on? Hey, you don't really understand because it seems like the headlines this morning in the newspapers were talking about confusion. They were saying that there's some confusion with the Bahama thing. You heard Glennis Hannah Martin in that interview with me early in the week say just now about how this whole thing is supposed to be this and not that. And the next thing you know, the deal was unsealed and it doesn't seem as if there's anything much to talk about. So the government of the Bahamas has actually said that, look, we're going to leave things the way they are, notwithstanding that Sarkis' Meridian had been lobbying and saying, look, agitating, I want to buy that thing, you need to reconsider and get rid of these guys, these Chinese fellows, get rid of the Chow Tai folk in them, get rid of them, is what Sarkis is kind of intimating and saying to Minnis and crew. But of course, Minnis and his team have holding fast to the whole position that there's nothing objectionable with this deal, especially as it was related from the heads of agreement that was a part of the seal arrangement when they got it unsealed, and the Attorney General, Carl Bethel, was the chief spokesman on that, saying that, look, there's nothing there that seems to be out of the way, so let us go. And it seems as if the government of the Bahamas is about to proceed and leave things the way they are. In fact, Graham Davis, who is in charge of Bahamas, Chow Tai Fook Enterprises, has said that he's happy and he's thankful to the government for what they are doing, and that they seem to be showing some confidence in this whole operation. So it doesn't appear to me that they're going to change anything, or that they're going to dismiss the people who are now running things and bring in Mr. Sarkis Ismailian, who in fact was the original developer. But the headlines this morning says it's confusing, and I suppose they were talking about what Menace had to say versus what the Menace spokesperson, the press secretary, Mr. Anthony H. Newell, had to say. And really, if you look at it closely, no, all it is that the government has not said something definitive. There's been no official statement per se on it, but we are seeing and hearing from the indication by the Attorney General that, it seems as if it's all go. I suppose many in media would like to hear Menace says it's all go, or it's not all go, or we have some apprehensions, we have some situations here we want to hold back or whatever. But from all looks of things, this is a done deal. It's going through, and it's already gone through, actually, and no one is going to pull it back. It doesn't seem as if this is a stop, review, and cancel. It seems as if this one is riding, and the Haymans are going to have jobs and so forth and so on. They're going to try and make the best out of this situation anyway, even though we all know that the PLP did some things inside managing some of these deals that it seemed as if they were looking after some of their interests in many cases. This is not one of those situations, I suppose. And so Menace seems to be ready to continue with what is now on the table. So if you are confused, don't be confused, because it seems as if the government is going to be continuous as far as the Bahama project is concerned. And while they have not answered Sarkis Ismailian in any real detail, it seems as if they've given him the cold shoulder. Now, that may seem kind of crazy for some people who had been following it and say, boy, I saw Sarkis Ismailian up there at Government House rubbing shoulders, taking pictures with Menace, and that may have made some people believe that something was going to happen in his favor. Menace, as I said, is a straight shooter, and I don't believe that he would deviate from what is now happening, because if there's nothing wrong with it, what's the big deal? And so while Sarkis may really want this to happen, and Lord knows that we all supported Sarkis and wanted to see Sarkis, go to a level of getting things done. It didn't work out that way, and the government did what they had to do at the time. And even though it was ugly and nobody really seemed to be looking at it from that perspective, how ugly it was a matter of sovereignty. If you could remember Allison Maynard Gibson talking about that, a matter of sovereignty, that we don't want to have any Chapter 11 filed in Delaware because we are a sovereign country and we need to know what we're supposed to be doing here, so we'll settle it in our courts. That's what they decided to do. Now the chips have fallen, and Menace has inherited a whole lot of stuff, and he has to wade through it. We'll see how it happens. We have to wade through it. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure today, a little with Darren Cash when he comes in. The other thing is that, what do you make of this whole thing that Fred Mitchell has been going on with? He was in the Senate, and he said some stuff that he's not about to pile on. And I noticed that the Guardian kind of quoted that terminology. They put it in quotes. Mitchell won't pile on Christie's criticism. I wonder what that means. Yeah, I don't speak English like that, If they don't pile on, that sounds, sometimes when people use language, they use language from what they're accustomed to. And I'm not talking about the Nassau Guardian. I'm talking about Fred Mitchell. That's the language that he used because that's how he speaks. So his terminology of pile on got a lot of people cracking up today and say, what? You understand? But anyway, we think we understand what he means. He doesn't want to add to the diatribe that's been happening with what this one say, what the next one say. And there are two individuals in particular, two young, outstanding two young, outstanding people, individuals who had been talking. And one of them, Chester Cooper, the other, Renard Rigby. And of course, Cooper, of course, is the man who's been just elected for the PLP in Exuma. Worked real hard, fought real hard, and came out a winner. Against all odds, as I told Glennis, they seem to have been scattered to four corners of the Bahamas. Exuma is Chester Cooper. Picewell Forbes is down there in South Andros. Glennis is in New Providence all by herself. And Brave Davis is over there in Rum Key and San Salvador and Ken Island. And so that's how it is. Now, Chester Cooper had taken issue with a lot of stuff that was said and a lot of things that happened in the elections. And he didn't mince words. He told them, Christie is the reason. Everywhere he went, he said, people said, look at that Christie fella. I'd vote for you, Chester, old boy, but you know, that Christie fella, man, he gots to go. That was what most of the members of Parliament were saying. But they weren't men enough or women enough to stand up and say that to Mr. Christie to his face, because Christie wasn't hearing that. And if they tried that, they might have gotten something unexpected. And they said, man, we ain't voting for Christie because of this Jerome thing and all that. So Chester Cooper was just telling the audience, the PLP the other night, that, you know, these were the realities, that you lost touch with the people. You got away from your core values. You stopped being servants of the people. You started to believe that you were gods or demigods or whatever it was. My words, he didn't say that. But that was the kind of comparison. And then, of course, he says that bottom line was that people were telling him every day when he campaigned, man, I won't vote for you, but I can't vote Christie. And other MPs were getting that same message. All in Marathon, they were getting it. Everywhere they were getting that same message, but nobody did anything about it. In Fort Charlotte, they were getting it. Alfred Sayers talked about it too. Yeah, man. Wherever Alfred Sayers went, Alfred is a good man. People love Alfred Sayers. But they said, Alfred Sayers, my friend, you know, you hanging out with Christie, them, and you really should be out there by yourself. And so they told him to, we ain't voting for you all. We ain't voting for you now. That's what the word was. So when Chester Cooper had enunciated all of that the other night, there were some people in the room who appeared to be surprised, as if, you know, first time they heard that. There was no need to be surprised because that was the word on the street. And then, of course, Renard Rigby, which was quite interesting, as I said yesterday on the show. Renard Rigby was over there he's a former chairman of the PLP. He was over there in Exuma while Chester was over here in Nassau. You think that was planned? Because, you know, these young Turks, they've had enough of it. They want to have a point of changeover, a pivot point where they can, go in another direction. And it appears that the old horses in the PLP have not gotten the message. And they are fighting hard against this shift, this paradigm shift that could pave a new day and a new way for the PLP. They are ignoring those young Turks. And so I believe that Renard Rigby, I don't have this as proof, but I've been hearing some stuff on the ground. And I believe Renard Rigby and some others are getting together to say, you know, look, enough of you guys. In fact, Renard Rigby gave them notice. He says, look, you know what's going to happen? Say everybody who had something to do with that last government of the PLP, they need to stand down, step aside, back away, forget about it, and don't even try that again. You're not going to be running. That's his view. That's his view. But that may not be his call. But this is what is happening now. And so the opposition, despite all the wonderful things that Glennis Hanna Martin tried to portray, they are in shambles, really, because when the convention rolls around, they will, in fact, be out for blood. They'll be killing one another for sure. I mean, when I said I'm talking about politically slaying one another. And it appears that Renard Rigby may be positioning himself to be in the driver's seat. And he's qualified. He's a great guy, Renard Rigby. He brings a lot of, political correctness and, I suppose, intelligence and the rest of it to the table. But will they have those young fellas try to turn things around? I mean, it's to their detriment if they don't, but, you know, that goes without saying. They could be in the wilderness for a long time, like 20-some years, you say? The FNM was in the wilderness for 20 years before they were able to even get a chance to strike at the PLP. And in 1992, they delivered. But they delivered with one of the PLPs who became an FNM, because Christie turned back and went back to the PLP, remember? And Ingram, the two independents who were there, Christie and Ingram, Ingram went on to become the leader of the FNM. So I didn't give you that little history to show you that the more things change, the more they remain the same in many regards. And this political season is not really over because the bloodletting has not yet been finished. There's more of it to happen internally, though, it appears, within the opposition forces. We'll watch and wait and see how it turns out. But it seems as if Chester Cooper and those are getting ready to do their thing. I hope Picewell Forbes is in that group, too, because he's a young fellow. And you can't lose twice, Picewell. Don't get left out. Anyway, I'm going to be talking today with Mr. Darren Cash. And Darren Cash, of course, is a former senator. And he is also one who has a good perspective on a lot of things. And I do respect his views and his positioning on a lot of things. And so since the economy is in crisis and all that, I want to talk with Mr. Darren Cash because he seems to be close to the game of the Free National Movement. I don't know where his politics really is now, because I know that his separation from the FNM was up in the air. When I say that, I'm talking about as chairman. But he may still very well be a full card-carrying member who have a lot of great ideas, who want to share and say this is what he thinks should be happening. I also want to find out from him if he is confused, too, about this Bahama thing, like some people say that they are. And we'll be talking with Darren Cash in just a minute when we come back here this evening on Hard Copy Live. You can call us, too, at 325-0235 or 632-50242 or 43-325-0252 or 53. Write down this number, 376-9234. That's the text. I plan to read your text messages today, so send them all in. We're back in a minute. This is Hard Copy Live.
Attention homeowners, do you have enough coverage for your home and possessions? Well, if you're not sure, maybe it's time you talk to Advantage Insurance. Your property and belongings are probably worth a lot more now than when you first insured them. After all the natural disasters we have experienced, it's more important than ever to be fully protected. Call Advantage Insurance at 356-0285 or visit us on Collins Avenue today. Advantage Insurance, celebrating 20 years of service.
Excuse me, I'm part of a team that's shooting a movie here, and I'll be moving locations quite often. What I need to know is if there are laundromats throughout the island, as there will be a fair amount of laundry to be done after each shoot.
Miss, you asked the right one, because I is one half of the unofficial voice for Superwash.
And I is the other half of the unofficial voice for the largest, cleanest, most modernist laundromat chain in this country.
Superwash got laundromat on Nassau Street, Minnie Street, Blue Hill Road, Wolf Road,
Robinson Road, Soldier Road, and Carmichael Road.
And Gibbs Corner and Prince Charles Drive. And they open 24/7, and they have small boy and big boy washer and dryer.
Plus, they is stain pressing and they got TV.
Anything else?
Do they have drop-off service?
Right away.
Do they sell detergent, bleach, and softeners?
Right away.
They washes your presses, it cleans you, and entertains you 24/7.
This year, don't be caught singing the Christmas blues. Start saving now with your own B.O.B. Christmas Club account. Sign up before June 30th with just $20. Earn high interest and have guaranteed spending money in time for Christmas. Don't be left in a bind this year. Let B.O.B.'s Christmas Club account work for you. Sign up today at your nearest B.O.B. branch. B.O.B., your bank of solutions.
Mark the dates. June 26th through 30th. It's the Assemblies of God's 62nd Biennial General Council meeting in Nassau, Bahamas. The place, Evangelistic Temple, Collins Avenue. The time, 7:30 p.m. nightly. The theme, the Kingdom of God culture. The Assemblies of God, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos Island invites one and all associate churches, members, and friends to this grand event. Go out and hear from Reverend Dr. Patrick Paul, Reverend Dr. James Bradford, Bishop Jerry Seal, Reverend Dr. James Davis, Reverend Dr. Robert Lockhart, Reverend Dr. Vaughn Cash, and many others as they speak to the Kingdom of God culture. All services will be held at Evangelistic Temple. Mark the dates: June 26th through 30th, 7:30 p.m. nightly. The Assemblies of God 62nd Conference, Nassau, Bahamas.
Ah, it tastes so good. Fresh, clear, ultra pure. Available at your neighborhood depot and nearest store. Echo Water, premium distilled. Don't be surprised. It comes in just your size. 20 ounces, 1 and 5 gallons, and 1.5 liters. Echo Water, just what the body needs.
You know, the will of the people is the will of God, and I accept what has happened.
The prophecy that was over this nation that the old weapons will not take us into the Bahamas. The old weapons are gone. Steve, I want to ask you one question. Why don't our leaders bow out gracefully? Why they got to wait till they get their punch beat off of them?
People need to appreciate one thing in this country. We need this government to succeed.
What is the likelihood of a progressive Liberal Party not becoming extinct?
That could never happen. Our party, we've been down and out before and came back.
Congratulations again on maybe one of the best talk shows that we have in the country. Hopefully, as we mature, Steve, as a country, we will get to that point where our state leaders are not pushed on the side or forced on the side, but they generally bow out after making successive stands to younger leaders and behind the scenes be good message to them.
Welcome back to Hard Copy Live. We are, and of course, with me today on the show, we're going to be talking with Darren Cash, Senator Darren Cash. And of course, the big question that I have in my head today is basically just how is it going for the new government? I mean, let's think of that for a second. Just how is it going? You've seen some stuff. You have perceptions and stuff so far, but really, how is it going? We plan to get a view from Mr. former Senator Darren Cash on that particular matter. As you know, Darren Cash, as I said, former parliamentarian in the Ingham government and made excellent contributions in the upper house during his tenure as an F&M senator. He also served as chairman of the party and also performed impressively in that particular role. Today, we seek out his views and perspective of the new Minnis administration. And of course, I want to say this here. These are his views, and I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you these are his views, and he does not represent the government or the party on his expressions. I think I would say that right for him because, you know, I know how he goes. He's particular to make sure that people know exactly what is happening. We're talking man to man, looking at things as two individuals, and of course, one who has a good eye on things as far as finances are concerned and economics in the country and those kinds of things, and politics, and myself looking at things for what they are. I don't know, Mr. Cash. Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Steve.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm happy to have you. But I don't know really if you had to do a soul-searching, heart-to-heart talk and try to surmise exactly where the government is right now. This is about 7 weeks, I suppose, into the administration. And there are people who have all kinds of expectations, I'm sure, that they want to see this and see that and see the other thing. But overall, we see the government getting some things done, which is called basically the elementary stuff for sure. And now we want to find out really where's the government at? Where are they focused? Where are they pointed? In sailing, we got a term says that you got to point the boat. You got to stick that stick that bow into the wind. We going straight across there. And we had a understanding when you have those kinds of terminology and the correctness of it, that this is exactly what this is deliberate. This is where we going. I don't know if people can figure out yet what it is that we are attempting to do in this first I suppose, 90 days, first 100 days of this new administration, Menace administration. From where you sit, what's your perspective? What do you see?
If I continue the analogy of a ship, I think it is critically important for the captain to be present, particularly at a time when you have a lot of seafarers on the voyage, where there are troubled waters and a lot of concerned passengers about just whether they're going to make it through the journey. So it's very, very important. I think off the bat I will say that I'm extremely skeptical about the prime ministerial or cabinet spokesman model, because I think it diminishes from the voice of the prime minister.
This has come up before on this show and other shows, and some members of media have been talking about it, but this is a decision that they made, I suppose, deliberately. That's a deliberate move to make that particular decision. For what reason?
No, I know there's no question. I think there is a time for the disseminator of information to be available, but I think there's a right model for that. I'm not sure that this is the right model. I mean, you can be transparent, you can make information available without having a spokesman for cabinet office or for the prime minister. But I want to keep that in the context of your question of how the government is doing, because I would sum it up in saying I think the government has been progressing slowly and deliberately. And that is not a serious knock against them, because they do have weighty jobs and weighty decisions to make, and they come to office at a very, very difficult time. So, and a lot of them are new to governance. So there is going to be a time for them to feel their way. While they do that, that's why I say it is so important for a captain to be present, and for that voice to be, in essence, always present, being
resonating,
clear to people that we have a course that we are on, and this is what we are doing, this is how we are progressing, and it needs to be focused on one or two critically important things.
So you're saying that we are devoid of, this is your captain speaking, this is where we're going.
I firmly believe that. And unfortunately, what we've seen play out over the last 24, even 72 hours has been evidence of that in the confusion in Bahama, in the confusion over the extent of strenuous legal actions that may be taken against wrongdoers under the previous regimes, or people who are in government. So in terms of how they're doing, I think that voice is missing, and without question, I know that there are most, if not all, of the ministers are working long days and hours in their ministries trying to make their way through. But as they do that, that's not always seen by the public. And so someone's got to be that commanding voice.
Could it be Darren Cash? This is a new model for us. This is almost like the United States model of a Republican with a spokesman through a press secretary, through Congress and all that kind of stuff. This is what they do with the kind of Republican representation, or I suppose we can call it a republic, that kind of thing. So it may be new, and even in our Westminster system, that we have now a press secretary. But I believe that this is something that can work wonderfully well. And it can work wonderfully well, but all players must be on the same page. For instance, Mr. Newbold hails from the press corps. He's a veteran. He's respected. He's very good. He's articulate. He knows the business. And certainly, I believe from those particular points of view, he brings a lot of scholarship to this particular position. And I support that. The point what I'm making, though, is that sometimes you have others who are in media, who are part of the colleagues in the grouping, who may, in fact, second guess or believe that, no, that's not the way to do it, and may make some editorial points on that whole matter. In fact, it could be reflective in all that is happening in media, because it seems to be that there's something that is not just jiving right, if I can use that term, in the flow of things. And so the day when I saw the newspapers that there was confusion, it seemed as if those who were looking at it say, well, the prime minister seems to be saying this, but the press secretary is saying that. Now what's happening? What's going on here? And I suppose that's what you're talking about too. But I believe that while all of that is happening, the whole focus of the Bahama thing, we got to look at it for its essence, right to the core of it. It doesn't appear as if the government is moving along the lines of reneging on the contractual agreement or overturning this heads of agreement. And so for all intent and purposes, it's obvious that the government is holding the line on where they're going. They're going to go and they're doing what they're doing with Bahama. And I think that comes across. Now, I agree with you that somebody has to articulate that in clear terms. So because this is how you know where the country is going to go. So people may now become a little confused, yes, and the people may become a little mixed up about, so what is really going on? And they start to ask a lot of questions again. I hope that I was able to put you in that direction as to what I'm seeing here and what I know is a major concern in the public about perception.
Right. I think it's important to look at it this way, and I want to operate from the premise that I'm inclined to cut the government some slack as they work their way through this process. You know, in a lot of ways, they've in the House, they finished the budget last week sometime. And this pretty much may be their first week to breathe deeply and, do some things. But I still come back to the first point, which is that while the government finds out to do a number of important things, it's important for the leader of the country to be seen to be in command of a handful of critically important things. Number one is growing this economy. And as the prime minister focuses on growing the economy, and at the heart of growth of any economy is investor confidence and consumer confidence.
Absolutely.
If consumers aren't confident about their jobs, about the future, they're not going to spend any money. And if they don't spend any money, there's no velocity of money, there's no turning in the economy. Investors don't expand, or investors who've been thinking of investing don't invest, or investors from abroad who've been thinking of coming don't come, or investors who are here now and operating get nervous. So a key thing that the leader could do right now,
I see your point,
in working out the model for the communication strategy and the spokesman is deal with one issue that fits comfortably into priority one, moving this economy forward. That issue would be Bahama. So how do we speak to, communicate about, provide information about Bahama in a way that inspires confidence in us and in this economy? And so in working out the model, you're doing it in an area that is of critical importance to the economy, that is of importance to the people who are working now and the ones who they continue to recruit, and to the investors who've got skin in the game right now. And I'm saying that's a missed opportunity when it comes to giving people a good view of how things are going. And fortunately, well, I'd like to think that the mistakes in coordination are not critical mistakes. They're not fatal mistakes.
They could be corrected.
Yes.
With somebody who's listening and deciding that we hear the constructive criticism in that, and we ought to move in this direction post haste to get it all corrected, rectified.
Now, if I may just make a final point on that, and because for me this goes to the heart of how we inspire confidence and diminish some of the uncertainty. In my view, and I said it before the general election, some of the comments that were made by my party were not well advised as far as Bahama is concerned.
Okay.
That I thought in capitalizing on the colossal failures of the Christie administration, we went too far in some of the things that we were doing because we created unfair and unreasonable expectations. By the time the general election was held, the matter of Bahama, for the most part, had been settled. That Mr. Ismailian had lost what was once his baby, and the people, you know, anyone who's borrowed a car, borrowed for a house, know that when the bank takes it back,
yes,
or until you finish paying it off, it's theirs.
Yeah.
Right? And so once he had lost that opportunity, you would have to make a diametrically divergent application of Bahamian law for him to get it back.
Yeah.
And to suggest that you would do that, I think was very, very unfair. And
you think that they suggested that? I mean, they actually said some things along the lines that they would be looking at. And yes, I remember the statements by Minnis. They were ill-advised, and I sought to clear them up as best I could, based upon knowing him and knowing what I believe he wanted to get done. But of course, the Bahamian people heard that, and that stayed with them, and that's still with them now. And so even now, with looking at this revelation that came out of the unsealed deal, they're still thinking that there's something inside that is untoward and that something should happen, and they're holding Minnis to trying to fix that. I mean, do you think that Minnis realizes that this is what is happening? And the other question too I wanted to ask you, to get your honest opinion on, your honest to goodness opinion on, is that do you suppose that Minnis is now playing into this narrative by not being out there speaking blah blah blah, that what Christie then was painting of him during the election, that he's not a good spokesman, he's not going to be able to do this, and see, I don't know. See, sometimes these things are psychological, because on one hand, I think the Bahamian people have enough respect and appreciation for Minnis because they believe that he's a good, honest fellow, and so they want to see him achieve, and so they voted for Minnis. They got rid of the PLP. I know the PLP had to go. That's how people felt. Get out of here. They had to go. But now there's this narrative that Christie then was talking, and see, I asked that question because I hear people on the weekend, today, when they move about, saying that, well, why he ain't talking? I think Minnis has been talking, but maybe he's not talking enough. Maybe he's not putting his complexion and his stamp of approval on whether his government is going to be going, that kind of stuff. And so there's a criticism that is now smoldering right there, saying that, we need to hear more from him. He need to be saying more stuff, more dynamic stuff, more direct stuff, more policy making stuff, more things like that he needs to be saying. I'm asking you this question, Darren. Do you believe that Minnis may have fallen victim of the narrative that was painted by Christie and those, that he is not this material, he's not that material, that kind of stuff? And I'm just wondering, because psychologically, this may be a part of the problem.
The short answer is, I think he might be, but to a very small extent. And to whatever degree, I mean, you play to your strengths. And to whatever degree this oral communication may not be a great strength, it at this point is significantly less in importance. And it will become less in importance over the next 3, 6, 9, 12, 24, 46 months, because a prime minister has the solemn responsibility to speak, and to speak with authority, and to speak from a position of strength and information. And as prime minister, he is the epitome of information. So information flows to his office, and so it becomes easy for a prime minister to speak with authority. And so he will, as his knowledge of the job, as his knowledge of all of the different aspects of government, increases, he's going to be more fluid and in command of all of the details. So whatever weakness he had before the election, I think is going to become less important. And so what I think is important is for him to actually speak. and to be heard, even if he speaks from a script that says, as Prime Minister, here are the facts. And I think most people will agree that he did a fairly decent job in his presentation in the House of Assembly. So he will get better at that. Mr. Ingram, when he became Prime Minister for the first time, was not the man he was 15 years later. He got better at the job. So I think Prime Minister Minnis is going to get better at the job. I hope he therefore takes advantage of as many opportunities to speak as possible. Speak from, speak with authority. You are in command of all of the information and the facts. You don't have to shoot from the hips. You don't have to be a Toastmaster, distinguished or Toastmaster.
Yeah, say that's
right?
how you feel. I thought he was very good in the Parliament the other day when he did his budget thing because he was himself. To me, he was himself. And I like that because Ingram was himself when he first came in. And, Ingram said all kinds of things at the time. I mean, they were factual, but, his style and his wording and all that kind of stuff and his pronunciation may not have been all that best. But the point is that he was an effective communicator who got the point across. And I think this is where people are grappling with what's happening here. And so they perceive that there's a press spokesman, a press secretary, because they think there's an inability. But I hear you saying that there's not really an inability. He will get better as things go on. But at this particular time, maybe he needs the kind of assistance in dealing with some of the daily little small matters, that kind of thing. The substantive matters, I'm sure he's going to deal with those things and has been dealing with those
Remember now, in a time of crisis, you want leadership to be present. Yes. You want someone to lead. You want someone to be there to say, peace, be still.
Yeah.
Eh?
When the chief reached, and he said, "Look, that's the deal. That's the end of the story."
Yes.
Yeah, he speaks with authority.
And you can do that, and you can do that with frequency, even in the face of having a spokesman, because a spokesman is someone who amplifies your message, who speaks to the nuance, who speaks to the element that didn't come up in the presentation. So there are many ways, I think, for Prime Minister Minnis and for Mr. Newbold to work together as an excellent team. I just hope that the Prime Minister doesn't see the presence of the spokesman as an opportunity for him to diminish his face time in front of the people.
Okay, you think that's maybe what is happening there as far as perception is concerned, that may be what people are thinking, that his role is a little diminished because of that. Listen, the truth be told, this isn't the first time that there's a press spokesman, or what they call a press secretary. It has never been official. Okay, it was never official. But there are certain things that when I sat in the chair at BIS, I did certain things, but I never was in a position to say I'm speaking for the Prime Minister or speaking on his behalf. But there were certain things that I had leave to do, certain things that I would have done, and people before me. But I get your point, and I hope that everybody else gets your point that, sometimes you've got to amplify the chief to the point where he is the man speaking, and let all and sundry know that the chief is speaking, and this is the deal.
Steve, I want to emphasize this point because we spent a few minutes talking about, the spokesman. The spokesman is a conduit to get information to the people. As a journalist, you would love at any moment in your 15-hour day, something, you're preparing a report, you're preparing a documentary, you're having an interview with someone, you have a question. You'd love to be able to pick up the phone and call the Prime Minister and get an immediate answer, or to call a minister and get an immediate answer.
Yes.
The reality is, unlike a certain friend of ours to the north, they're not always watching TV or listening to the radio, right? They're busy working. But the spokesman, the person who can sneak in between meetings and get a quick answer, is the person you can call on at any time to say, listen, clarify this for me. I'm uncertain about this. Or the PM didn't speak to this. Can you clarify? And so on. You can get Ace to give that information, if he is working in sync with the PM on a moment's notice, but you can't get the PM on a moment's notice. And that's why I say, once they coordinate the message on significant things, that are going to move the meter, move the dial. I think it's going to work carefully, flawlessly. I just hope they get to that coordination sooner rather than later.
Let me ask you something before we get on to some other things, and I'm happy that you said explain it that way. I think that's good criticism, and that's constructive criticism to take a look at it and see how best it could best be matched and come together. The other thing, though, Mr. Cash, is that since the election, there are people who have been saying that the government present, led by Minnis, has remained in a rhetoric kind of election mode, even though they were there in the House and going through the budget and all that kind of stuff. And people are saying, while we appreciate that this has just happened, people are still saying that, look, we want to see some kind of idea of direction where you're going in the governance of the country. And I wonder if, in fact, this is just something that we as a country must go through to, clear up all the stuff that's been backlog, all this stuff about who take what and who mismanaged that. And so there's going to be a period that's going to be with us. We'll have a time in this particular moment now that they'll be with us for a bit, and then we'll move on to the governance. But you started to mention about the biggest thing in the country is this economy. We got to get it moving. How do we transition quickly from all of this rhetoric that's been happening and all this stuff that's still out there saying, man, somebody got to go to jail? That's all the people saying. How does Minnis and his team transition from that kind of frenzy to getting sober with the governance of the things that need to be spoken to?
When I do training or I speak to leaders and we talk about strategy, I like to draw this analogy I heard from a Pepsi executive more than 20 plus years ago when I was in business school. He says you can make small changes to small things, and you could do a lot of that and you look busy, and at the end of the day it amounts to nothing. You can make small changes to big things, and you could do those things, and at the end of the day it amounts to nothing. Or you can make big changes to small things.
Yeah.
And when you make big changes to small things, it makes a radical difference. Or you can make big changes to big things. And that's why I go back to what I said at the beginning. While all the ministers are fanned out throughout the ministry is doing their thing, the prime minister has got to be the one who says, I'm making big changes to big things. I'm doing the dramatic, significant things that are going to move the dial for this country, not next year, next week, but starting immediately. And so, yes, there was a season for the name and shame, and they didn't do enough naming. There's a season for that. I think that season passed within the first week or two of the budget debate. And people have moved beyond that for the most part. They don't believe that whoever did wrong ought to be held accountable any less, but it's the naming part no one's interested in. The question now is follow the process that actually produces an end result. But more importantly, what are the specific changes that you're going to make sure that these things don't happen again? And if you, in terms of really moving the dial on things, if you bring the legislation to Parliament, ready on day one kind of theme, if you bring the policy changes to Parliament, ready on day one kind of thing, if you enact the Freedom of Information Act, ready on day one kind of things, if you implement the major groundbreaking program that's going to change how government operates, those are the kinds of things that people say, hey, listen, they put a good spanking on the PLP.
They're ready now.
They brought some indication of what they've been doing. We understand from the AG that more to come. Those processes will run their course. But the thing I voted for, the change in the law, I'm seeing it, and so I'm satisfied. So the problem we've had is there's not been a lot of that.
So this anti-corruption playbook that Dr. Minnis has been talking about. This is something that should be front and center now, of making sure that the policies are put in place to negate this kind of stuff, or to nullify this kind of stuff.
The act should have been passed along with the budget. The act should have been passed along with the budget.
So that would have been an error, or you think that exactly what they want to put inside that act, the anti-corruption thing, is not been formulated to say the specifics as to what they are really trying to get done?
And my judgment would be it's a mistake that it wasn't formulated and presented. See, people voted for those who saw the anti-corruption theme as a significant point in why they voted. They expected change, and that's not a new thing. The idea of fighting corruption is not a new thing. It's not a new theme. It's a theme that we were working on since 2012 after the election. And so we should have been more prepared. We should have been able to deliver a significant package of legislation to move the meter. And I think that was a mistake.
Well, listen, a lot of people are believing that the government has won, and they believe that Minnis and his team are in because of the kind of, I don't want to say hatred, but the kind of dislike that the people grew against the Christie government. So this was more or less a get out of here, Christie, and whoever is available, let's go. And they went with them. So it's not predominantly an FNM victory, as it perhaps is a big kick out of the PLP. And then the FNM is now in place with Dr. Minnis. So I'm saying, do you suppose that, because people have said it, they've criticized it, they've been talking, that Minnis them need to show that they're more ready? And I suppose what they mean by that is they're talking about these same things, policy initiatives that has to be played out, put in, implemented, and get moving. The Freedom of Information Act, this is something that there should have been another side of the coin to it. If the PLP's thing didn't pan out to what it's supposed to be like with the Information Act, here's the FNM style. Now we're in charge of this thing. This is what we're doing, and this is how the Information Act is going to be. So talk to me about preparedness, because that becomes a very, very important topic now in this dispensation, that people are wondering how prepared is this group to lead the country.
Well, again, I'll answer it this way. I had the good fortune of sitting with Zhivago Lang on his show for a few weeks in advance of the election, as we went through the political platforms of the three major parties that were contending. And, I think the two of us on more than one occasion emphasized that, we were going through this exercise, and it takes a lot of time to go through all of them in any depth. But we're going through this exercise knowing almost full well that at the end of the day, Bahamians aren't making decisions on the basis of these platforms.
Exactly.
But at the same time, we emphasized the point, particularly for those who were expecting to replace the Christie government, that in anticipation of becoming the government, you've got to be able to deliver on the things that are in these manifestos almost immediately. And that was the key. And one of the knocks I had on the FNM's manifesto was that I didn't think it went far enough in some areas in terms of demonstrating really, really deep third, fourth level thinking on some of the issues. But there was always the caveat that, listen, a manifesto isn't necessarily always the place to do that. I think Zhivago had a different point of view. But in any event, the consistent theme was, if you win, you've got to be prepared almost immediately on the key things.
Right.
To go 3, 4, 5 levels deep and demonstrate that you are ready to govern. And there's no way, there's no area more significant than in growing this economy, in creating jobs, in stimulating the economy. And again, I think a lot of people have said that they're hard-pressed at this moment to identify those major themes that are going to be used by the new government to move the economy forward. And that's a weakness that I think they need to get on to fixing.
So let's look at that for a second, Mr. Cash. We look at this economy, we know that, boy, This one is something that can choke all of us to death. This economy, there's nothing happening at all. And we also know that where we are in debt, we also know that our debt ratio continues to grow. I think they say it's now somewhere around 80% thereabouts.
80% of GDP.
Yes, of GDP. We look at these things, we see that we've heard all the people told us, IMF, IDB, all of the other agencies like Standard & Poor's and Moody's and all, they all say that we have to do some things that are realistic things in any financial situation to tighten the belt, to reduce the cost of running things, and to reduce the civil service in the government's case, all of those kinds of things. But no one has really been looking at that and saying that they're going to definitely do these kinds of things. That can, in my view, at least give the indication that some things are about to happen and the government is now on the right road to recovery, to do some things to, at least reduce the size of things, to reduce the cost of it, the expenses of it, and then the next level is to do X, Y, and Z. What are those X, Y, Z things now? Because the truth be told, we haven't heard anyone really articulate the fact that we are going to run with this idea that we have to reduce the civil service. We're going to run with this idea that we've got to reduce our spending. We've got to collect revenue. We haven't heard that. Now, we still hear that, boy, we got to grow this economy. How are we going to grow this economy? What are the tools? How will these things happen? Where's the stimulus? How is that going to be? And if we don't do that, we've got a growth rate, they tell me about 1.3 or 4, something like that. When are we going to be able to get to the threshold that we can see some kind of recovery in our system? Because this affects everybody, all of us, you, me, and all the other people out there who are listening in to find out. So when are we going to get on with that part of trying to fix this economy?
I hope it is soon. But again, the idea of concentration and focus becomes even more important. So you know the expression, bird in the hand worth two in the bush. What's the bird in the hand right now as far as
Bahama?
Bahama.
Bird in the hand.
It's and so we've got a number of things at play. One, we've got to, as a government, put an end to all of the speculation, all of the equivocation about what you're going to do. There's a bit of eating of crow involved, I have to confess, but unfortunately, you made the statement in the general election, and it doesn't hold water today. So you got to do it and then move on as quickly as possible. But you've got to make it clear that that what the leader of Bahama has been saying is in fact true. We met, we had a good meeting, we expressed our support, confidence and support in them. Unlike the Minister of Tourism, we're not going to criticize them for not being more busy, but we're going to do everything in our power to help them be successful. And here are the specific things that we're going to do to get employment up in this area, to get them ready. Next to that, the idea of making some changes to Bahamas Air in terms of putting more of a focus on North American cities.
Very important.
Because airlift is going to be important to making Bahama successful. So if you direct your energies towards that goal with a vengeance, it pays off. A little bit more crow eating is involved because in tandem with promoting Bahama, there are opportunities to also bring people via Bahamas Air into the Bahamas, into not only New Providence, but the Family Islands. Indeed. And so if a part of revitalizing at least the major islands that already have capacity can be a part of what you do to help create jobs and stimulate economic activity, then concentrate your efforts on that. And if you need a few $1 million more to do it, then you have to be prepared to say to the Bahamian people, we're going to make cutbacks here, we're going to make changes here, in order to find the resources to do it. But if you go on this basis that you're going to do a little bit here, a little bit here, you're going to disperse your efforts so greatly and your resources so greatly that you will not be able to focus like a laser beam on the things that are very, very important. So bird in the hand, get Bahama up and running, focus on helping to get the airlift in that they need. Don't lose track of what you need to do to make sure Atlantis continues to do well. And then, Steve, focus on Grand Bahama.
Well, I say it every day. Every day I say it. But what is the big way? Because what Menace has enunciated the other day in talking to the Chamber of Commerce and talking to those persons who are in charge of the Labor Confederation, I can't remember the name anyhow, but the Employees Confederation. He talked about a number of things that he wants to do in Grand Bahama to get that economy moving. He talked about a Mecca area for ecotourism. He talked about culture, a village for culture, that kind of thing in West Grand Bahama, in East Grand Bahama. He talked about this ecotourism thing. He talked about in Lukaya. He talked about maritime and sports and that kind of stuff. Are they the right ingredients to really cause Grand Bahama to bust loose, so to speak, and get it moving?
During the general election campaign, the word entrepreneurship got a lot of play. And my answer to your question is, I don't know for certain, but entrepreneurship is a part of the answer. The entrepreneur, that person with the idea who is prepared to take the risk, right? And what they need is the confidence that they're going to have the support of the government of the Bahamas. Because the people in Grand Bahama who are looking for opportunities to work, they'll get their support. So a part of the solution is the government's got to intensify its efforts. I go back to when the Bahamas was blacklisted back in 2000, it may have been. Hubert Ingram went abroad for like 2 weeks.
I remember that.
You know, he made, his critics say that he made some mistakes, you know, in terms of writing the legislation, and so on.
And Senator would say that, and then Bungie and them say, I remember that. We know the story.
But I illustrated to say, when you talk about intensity and focus of a prime minister, that is the kind of focus. So on a Grand Bahama, what will inspire investor confidence? Because we've got plant there already. They don't have to build hotels. You've got to find people with the ideas to put product there, to draw people to the island with some capital to invest, and who are prepared to take the risk. So if you intensify your efforts to make that happen, I think that can go a long way, coupled with Bahama, bringing Bahamas Air's reach into the mix.
Do I hear you correctly when you make that suggestion? Because somewhere else I've been hearing that that Menace needs to grab a group of people who are experts in economics and the rest of it, or business individuals, and move about in search of foreign direct investment, in search of making sure that other big projects and like manufacturing and that kind of stuff, assembly plants, can come into our jurisdiction, and find ways and means to seek out and sort out and go out in the world and go look, that kind of stuff. I mean, Ingram did this, but maybe the times are different. What do you say? You're an economist. You understand what is happening. Is it a different time now for that kind of position to happen by Dr. Hubert Menace?
And I do believe that the F&M government is of this view. You believe that foreign direct investment will play, not can play, will play a significant part in moving this economy into strong growth positions. Then you cannot be apathetic about it. You cannot be lackadaisical. You cannot be nonchalant. A key part of attracting capital at a time when so many countries around the world are looking to attract capital, I think it does behoove you to go out and shake the tree and to promote what it
Understood.
is that you have to offer. And in that regard, all of the people who stand to benefit from foreign direct investment are the ideal people to go and pitch. And the last point I'd make just quickly is I listened to the program the other day when representatives from the financial services industry were in Canada. And I was extremely pleased to hear the level of confidence that they have in the financial services sector, because this sector has been pummeled over the last decade or more. But to hear those professionals express their confidence in our opportunities to grow, again, entrepreneurship, those people who are prepared.
This is
to
why
invest the
all
blood,
and sundry
sweat,
should
and
be
tears.
motivated to go and seek them out.
Absolutely.
That is something that has to happen.
And it's high paying jobs.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Let me just take these calls and then I'll run to a break. Hard copy. How you doing today?
Hey, good evening, Mr. McKinney.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, reconcile. Good evening, Mr. Guest.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, you sounding good, man. And Mr. McKinney, my mind is more than anything on a Bahama deal, and I need, the Bahamian people needs more clarity on that because there are conflicting signals flying all over the place with regard to the deal. The F&M on the campaign trail, they raised so many issues about corruption being involved in the way it was presented by the PLP and the Chinese, how what they were dealing with. So now, there again, some conflicting reports come, and I heard some reporters trying to, interview the Prime Minister about some things with regard to Bahama today, and he brushed them off more or less, and I didn't think that was such a good thing to do. Okay, you saw that piece?
You want a definitive answer. You wanted to stand up and face the music on the whole matter.
I wanted to lead on it, to be definitive. Let us know as the Bahamian people if they're gonna allow Mr. Merlian, because the idea is that he was shafted by the PLP and the Chinese, and even 3 times they were supposed to open, didn't open, and the shorty workmanship and losing so many hundreds of millions of dollars. If the man have a shot to really, and therefore seeing that the deal is not officially closed as such,
Well, how do you know the deal is not officially closed? I mean, from all indications, it seems as if the deal is on the table and that everything is proceeding just as according to plan. And this is from one government to the other government. And it doesn't seem as if this government is about to stop, review, and cancel anything because they see nothing objectionable in the whole matter so far.
Mr. McKinney, with great respect, I think that's a skewed view.
Okay.
I firmly believe that's a skewed view. I never believe, I'm not coming out to blame, say the Attorney General is telling an untruth, but I can tell you one thing, I am not convinced that, it's that way. Because furthermore, there is some parts of the deal that is not unsealed. And these probably are the main important ones, the most important one, like the commercial aspect of it. All right? Now, if Merlin has one option, one good option, if the government doesn't work with him, or if the government I don't know if they made him any promises or gave him inducements toward him that they would help him to get this result back, that he could take it to court. And the court will reveal to the world and everything, it all would be brought to the light of day.
Understood.
And down from all sides.
Yeah. Well, you know something, Reconcile, I appreciate what you're saying, right? And I believe that you have a right to feel kind of what is going on here, that kind of stuff. And a lot of people feel the same way that you feel. I'm hoping that within time, we're going to get more clarity, as you've called for, from those who are in charge now of the governance of the Bahamas. They have to face the music and turn loose on the matter and say, this is the deal. Definitively, this is what is happening. Yeah. So once people hear that, they'll know whether or not they can go with the flow.
But they're not doing that. They're ducking and dodging.
Well, that may be.
And that's not good.
Well, if that's your perception that they're ducking and dodging, I will be the first to let them know right now that you got to stop ducking and dodging because people want to hear definitively what you all are doing.
And they're doing the ducking, the dodge, and alley shuffle and all of that. See, you got to lead. Number one, what drives any economy? Small business. They need to, they made a lot of promises on the campaign trail, and I like a lot of stuff. But when they repeal that WAT, that really hits.
Do I hear you saying that you're beginning to lose faith already? That
yes, I am definitely saying that, because you can tell the scripture said you can tell a child even from the birth whether he will be good or bad just by his spirit, his character, even from birth. The Bible made, I'm not quoting the verbatim, but something to that effect. So the way that they are going, and they made a right about turn with that what situation, they repealed the poor people. Hello?
I'm listening.
Who helped them to win the government. They did not, to me, they were kicked against the curb, and I would not let this rest because I think it was wrong.
Well, listen, you have a right. I appreciate what you're saying.
One more thing before I close.
Yeah, I got a bunch of calls. Go ahead. Quickly.
Was what I call a rich man, but they have the poor people. The poor people is who put them there.
Let's talk about
they ought to do better. See, all the governments make and anti-corruption. They didn't know. They talk about anti-corruption. If there's nothing in the law to convict these people and seize their assets, you cannot do a thing. You must have the requisite legal, framework in place to do that.
Yes, sir.
It's just all hard here. Have a good day.
I appreciate it. One of the things that's quite interesting is that one hearing a reconciler today says that one could say he seemed to be like, wait a second guessing now. Because he feels as if he's not being told directly what is really happening, and now he's becoming iffy about the government, and that's not a good thing when the government this early in the game begin to attract people who are saying, or begin to cause people to say, wait a second, what are you all doing? You all seem to be in a mood of betrayal or schizophrenic, like you say you're doing this but you're doing that. What is happening here? And that is what I believe that the caller was basically saying just now, Darren.
It is a fact, and that's something that the government has to deal with. But the only way you deal with that is you have to be open. I mean, in essence, you have to be transparent. And admittedly, there's
you remember this guy says
involved.
And we get that point. You have to eat some crow because that's the way it is. You went on the campaign trail. You said those things. You couldn't prove that thing. You backed it up, and now you couldn't back it up. And now you're getting conflicting evidence coming back to you saying, no, it didn't really go so. It went like this. It went like that. And the other part of it is that the PLP is right there saying, I told you so. You only know what you were saying. And so all of those things combine for a kind of position where the Free National Movement government, as it is now, has not really lashed back or decided to stand firm and answer. They've not stood an answer at this particular point. So they're perhaps in a state of flux on some of those things.
Again, you've got to major in the major things. You've got to spend your energy thinking about how to communicate on the things that are most important to your electorate. And it's not, Steve, it's not going to be more than 3 to 5 major issues that the Prime Minister ought to be thinking about and speaking about every day or every other day.
Yeah,
and that means he's got to craft a message that incorporates the
talking points that people want to hear about.
Crap out of the PLP on this issue, and I confess, I was a little overzealous in suggesting X. But the fact of the matter
you need
is,
to start
the
coining
case
this.
is Y.
You need to start writing this thing.
And there's no running away from it. For example, if I were Prime Minister in waiting, I wouldn't have made some of the comments about selling Bahama to a reputable
Yeah,
deal,
I mean,
right?
that was a clear mistake.
Right, but at the same time, right, to suggest that then Prime Minister Christie was cozying up to the Chinese was not inappropriate, because in the manner in which Mr. Christie and his government were conducting themselves to the detriment of Mr. Ismailian, it was clear.
Yeah, the perception was there.
Listen, incest had nothing to do with how tight Mr. Christie and the Chinese were. So he could be forgiven for being a little overzealous in certain areas, because there's no doubt that Mr. Christie appeared to be conspiring with the Chinese. You go back to the letters written by Minister Maynard Gibson and all of those kinds of things. But again, you know, you still have to bring it to a close and say, here's what we are going to do. And this idea that you are going to in some way intervene with the current court situation has to be settled within the next 24 or 48 hours.
I believe that. We have lots of calls. Let me take these calls, Steve, before we break. And hold the lines, please. I'm coming right now. Hard copy, how are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. How you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cash.
Good day, sir.
Mr. Cash, you know, one of the things that I move around and I hear people ask about it, you know, some of these things that are coming out is really, you know, it's really confusing, disturbing, and stuff like that. When we hear things like what happened at the airport, where one individual had 9 stores, 9 different stores in the international, Mr. Billings International Airport, didn't pay rent for 5 years, and then come back and be told by the board or be influenced by the board, by the last prime minister, to write off $1.3 million off the rent if that individual gives up one store. The average people out here struggling and everything to buy corned beef and sardines and keep the light and the water on. And then when we hear, like, okay, the case of Bahama, when we hear that these certain individuals in the Bahamas, the Bahamians, when we say, what is in it for us? We hear we could get some jobs, with, you know, a security job, a fella on the beach, watching the waterfront, cleaning up the beach, couple bartenders, couple waitresses.
Yes, we get the point.
But you get the menial jobs, right?
Right.
But when we hear certain individuals, same families over and over, they getting all the concession to own stores inside this doggone establishment.
So what are you saying, Sparky? You expect to hear policies written by this new government that says that...
So that Bahamian people could get a chance.
Yes, okay.
Maybe Sparky could be an entrepreneur if I had an idea and I want to put a store.
Understood, and that's only fair.
You understand what I'm saying? Why only certain people in this country gets everything?
I appreciate it. Listen here, Darren, you know what is happening here, Senator Cash? People are believing that nothing has changed, that the playing field has not been level and nothing has changed, that politicians are now in position again, and they have not done anything to mitigate problems that we had in the past. They've not written any policies they have not shown any defiance against any of those things that were in the past and trying to correct those things. And so here's another caller who believes that it's the same old with different players getting their time to get fat on the hog. And so there's that's a serious thing that has to be dealt with, because you don't want that to be setting in this new government. This government is hoping to go for 5 years. I keep hearing other PLPs out there saying stuff like, if they last that long, if they go to 2 years. I hear somebody even said, what was it, Dr. King, who said that this is an interim government. My position is that, you know, why is that happening? And maybe the real question is, no, not why is that happening? How can that be prevented from happening? And shouldn't the government now be making sure that they can do everything to counter what these people are saying, because they have not yet put in policies? Shouldn't that click in their heads that we got to do something immediately to mitigate against this? And the other thing,
Steve, the short answer is it should. And I'll come back to the platforms before the election. The Democratic National Alliance, I believe, was the party, had a 100-day agenda. I thought that was an excellent way to set expectation. Now, bear in mind, the PLP had a 100-day agenda back in 2007, so back in 2012 as well, right? But they didn't deliver on it. And in 2002, they had a very, very impressive program to invest in Bahamians as well, and they didn't deliver on it. But in 2017, for the two parties most likely to succeed, the PLP, at a time when expectations were so enormously high, I thought that was a great time to have a 100-day or 200-day or whatever agenda, so you can be clear on expectations so people could know what's happening. That not having been done, the FNM still has an opportunity today to begin to
temper this thing
to set clear expectations. Now, listen, the House is adjourned until September. So that's almost 3 months.
This is the getting it together time now, right?
Well, it's
this is supposed to be let's get it together now and bust loose.
If it were me, I'd have all of these folks working overtime to deliver on what needs to be done. Summer break would be extremely short, and the public would know at all times what we're working on to deliver on the major programs that we talked about: legislative changes, policy changes, new program initiatives. Yes, this is the getting together time, but it is also a time when this ease, this calm could be extremely poisonous.
Wow.
If you don't, if people,
because the expectations will be higher, then the people start to get annoyed and say, "What the hell you all doing, man? I thought you." That's what will happen. They'll start to complain and grumble, and that talk radio being what it is today, this is no kind of climate to be causing people to talk and grumble. People need to be looking at this is what the government said they're doing. Let's wait and see on this, and these are the policy initiatives that they put out. And so somebody has got to get out there and enunciate all of those things, and no other person more suited than the leader to say,
yes, indeed, but
this is what is going to happen.
And though, you know, that this idea of equality of opportunity is really an excellent way to do it, because there are so many examples of where government can use its influence to level the playing field. I'm going to go there on Bahama. Minister Maynard Gibson took a lot of flack because her family owned stores in
Bahama.
In Bahama.
Right.
Her family's in the business, in the jewelry business. I don't know what other things, right? Right. But a government that is truly committed to expanding opportunity has got to be about affirmative action that says,
there you go,
we are going to limit. I mean, the reality, if you don't use your influence to create opportunities for other people, and therefore in Bahama, in other new developments, you've got to insist that other people who are quite capable are brought to the table, including at the airport, where we know the deal. It is, yes, you've been there forever, and over time you've gone from 3 stores to 5 stores to 7 stores to 9 and so on. Yeah, but we all know that a part of how you've been able to do that has not been economic brio, economic genius.
No.
It has been political connection.
That's all.
And the political directorate has got to use its power to
change
break that.
Yes.
And those are the things that you can do almost immediately.
Yeah. You know, that's what made Ingram stand out. You know, Ingram says, this one on that, that's enough of that. We can fix that. I mean, and he said exactly what he was going to do, and they happened. I'm not saying that I want to compare Mr. Dr. Minnis with Mr. Ingram. I'm saying that there are certain things that are just clear. Just the clear road of how you do it. Just do it. Just get it done. Have your policies together. Make sure that you're looking out for the best interests of the Bahamians. This ain't no rocket science. This is a matter of making sure that people are going to be served, and there's equality across the board. There's a level playing field across the board if you can, and you must work with the objective of achieving those things every step of the way in the next 5 years. You got to do it.
And there's got to be transparency now. I can say something that's going to get me in trouble with my friends. PLP gave out political contracts.
We're coming to the calls right now in a minute.
As sure as night follows day, the FNM will give out political contracts.
It's the nature of things.
We never knew where the contracts were going under the PLP. But even as the FNM seeks to level the playing field, because I was one of the harshest critics of the PLP, because they did it with such ruthlessness in denying FNM's contracts. It was a sin. So even as the FNM seeks to balance the scale, they've got to move to the point where there is public disclosure on who's getting all the contracts. All.
Should be publishing all.
All. So if it's Ash or Simpson or Crimson or Fire, whoever it is, we could know that, oh my goodness, who's this? Steve, what? Steve ain't no contractor. How come he getting 10 jobs from the Ministry of Works?
What do you know about construction?
Yeah.
You don't even know the difference between a nail and a hammer.
You don't need to wait for no general election to blow the whistle on something that smells fishy.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to set it up right. You did right. Let me take some calls. Hard copy, how are you?
Hey, Steve, how you doing today?
Thank you. Well, all is
well. Good afternoon to Darren Cash.
Same to you, sir.
Darren Cash, I would like to say this before I move forward with my contribution. I'm getting to appreciate you more and more as the days go by. As you make your contributions, I'm listening to you very attentively and very deliberately, and I must say, your mind seems to be a very fair-minded one. You call it as you see it, whether it goes against what you believe your party that you support, the FNM, is embarked upon or not. You'll give a very good analysis from your perspective on what you see going on, and I appreciate you for that, sir. Now to my point. I want you, Steve, and the nation. I listened to Reconciler, the earlier caller, very, very carefully. And we should, as Bahamians, should not allow anything that he says to fly over our heads willingly without close inspection. That man spoke volumes. And for us who are out here who claim to be nationalists, put the parties aside, but nationalists, we want to see our country succeed. We need to be very cognizant of some of the contributors on what they're saying when it comes down to this country. He made some very salient points, and I mean, all I did was shook my head throughout his whole contribution. So I say thank you to him personally. Now, to my particular point, Brother Cash, I would like to know if you have heard anything as far as the FNM is concerned pertaining to the work permit and immigration policies that they intend to implement. Right now, as it stands, our economy is at a standstill. Employment figures in this country is at a standstill. Regardless to the recent employment at Bahama, which I am not even going to address Bahama at all, except for this one point. Everything in this country appears, from perception, to be very stagnant in this country. What are we going to do with these proposed work permits that from the previous government had already signed on to allow certain entities in this country to bring in X amount of people into this country to work, when we have Bahamians here who are fighting and scratching for work, who are qualified for some of these positions, but yet they're being denied the right to find work in this country. You know what gets me? In order for the economy of any country to move, it depends upon its citizens. I haven't heard anything yet about the first-time entrepreneurs. I haven't heard anything about the current business people in this country who find it hard to keep their doors open. I haven't heard anything as yet. Now, some people may say that the Minsk government is fresh, is just coming through the gates or whatever. But you made a very salient point earlier, which states that if you are a government in waiting, and that's the key phrase, government in waiting, wouldn't you not have put some things in place that maybe from day one, had you been on the ground in the manner that you said that you have from day one, you will begin to enact a process where the first time entrepreneurs will be incentivized to do something with what it is that they wanted to do, which in turn means that they are now able perhaps to hire 3 persons or 4 Bahamians without who.
I gotta let you go. You made your point. I gotta let you go here because I've got calls and I've got to run to a break. Thank you for your call. You want to tackle that whole thing? He talks about that work permit and the fact that Brent Simmons had issued some statement recently about I think his contribution to the House 115,000 work permits in the last 5 years, which is astronomical considering what our workforce is and that kind of stuff. And it directly links to if we are trying to grow this economy by Bahamians working or have Bahamians having the skills to work in this environment, if you can.
I want to start by thanking the gentleman for his kind words. I do appreciate that. From I started in my profession, the issue of immigration and work permit has been an issue of great interest to me. And as we think about Bahama, both on the construction side as well as on the operation side, and we think about work permits, it's important to think about work permit, not just for those 1,200 people that they want to bring in, but I also want to cast the callers' mind and the listeners' mind back to those days a couple of years ago when Bahama used to have full page and sometimes dual full page spreads in the newspaper advertising for positions. And in most instances, most of those positions were purely going through the motions because they wanted to bring in an expat for those positions.
Exactly.
I said on numerous occasions to colleagues and to others who would listen, I was so offended by that because it was a joke. So in my view, given where we are as a country, given the unemployment position, we ought to aggressively fight to get more Bahamians working. And that number ought to be considerably lower than 1,200. So to Minister Minister's credit, Prime Minister Minister's credit, when he argued before the election to get Bahamians finishing Bahama, he was right on point to do that. And whether it's the PLP or the FNM, we ought to aggressively argue to get Bahamians. The flip side of that, to be perfectly blunt, is that both Export-Import Bank and the government of the Bahamas have weak hands. Whoever comes in to take over that property has a giant monstrosity that they're going to have to be extremely creative about to make it economically viable. And so they're going to come in demanding as many concessions as they could possibly get. Because if you think about it being too big to fail, the question I said before is it may be too big to succeed. So they're going to be aggressive on the cost cutting, which means cheap labor. We got to be aggressive on the employment, which means we got to probably find some creative way to help make them successful. Either way, the model for us has got to be get more Bahamians working and get some money in this economy. And at the same time, get Bahamian brain talent engaged.
No, I like it. But listen to this. You look at the 1,200 people who they talk about for CCA, the construction company, to continue with the things what they need to do. That's where that 1,200 people were coming from. That's not the other expats that they were looking to bring in as executives to run the operations, you know.
Right. No.
So when you look at that, if you were to model and look at or use it as an example, the many names that you saw in those double trucks, that's what we call them in the newspaper, double trucks of newspapers, ads, 2 pages and stuff like that. When you see stuff like that, that tells you that if you counted those things, you'll see how many jobs you're looking at right up the top. Now, you can't allow for that to happen. I mean, yes, we want the thing to be successful, and yes, there will be a certain level of expertise that they'll need to bring in. We know that. But it got to be a situation where it's almost kind of like somewhere equal. They got to meet us somewhere in the middle with those top class jobs because we have people who can do it.
Everyone
we know
has
that.
Got to put skin in the game. So
So-
the skin for them is,
and what's
you
scary-
don't get everyone you wanted, but you got to make sure that you train. We don't get everyone we want, but we're gonna make sure that you get some of the key people that you want. But everyone's got some skin in the game, and everyone is incentivized to invest.
He
in
asks
people.
another question, Darren, and I got to run to the break. The question he asks is that what are the projections, the forecast for the Ministry of Immigration at this particular point on those that are looking now to get the additional work permits, either at Bahama or wherever, who are coming into the country in the financial services sector, whatever, because there's got to be a working list of people who are on that list to get approval for work permits. What are those numbers looking like? And shouldn't we understand what those things are? Shouldn't that be disclosed? Because it seems as if we're running two countries here. Like, there's a work permit country that people can come and they can pay for them work permits, and then that's some big dollars too. And at the same time, there's a poverty line that's beginning to develop now in this country because our people aren't working.
Listen, Steve, to that point, to that point, I say again, we have to be aggressive on the Bahamas side in pushing for what's in our best interest. We've got to be aggressive. And that means we need a minister who is not going to permit what happened so often under the previous regime, which is these immigration officials get so cozy with the foreign investors that they're getting free stuff at certain places, and then work permits are
Is it
going
really
through
that?
without being challenged.
Is that where it really is, Mr. Cash, Senator Cash? You've been in the Senate. I mean, is that where it is, or is it at the level of the minister himself or the cabinet who will perhaps have some oversight of what's happening here with work permits as far as people coming in? I mean, we're opening this country to a large extent to bring people in. We know, but at the same time, it's got to be measured. It cannot be where everyone is coming in and they're sorted out with jobs and work permits, and then at the same time, our people aren't being served. So, isn't this at the ministerial end it's all right? I suppose it's easy to say these workers, these hired hands who are a part of the system of immigration as an executive or undersecretary or whatever, that they're the ones who have sight over this thing. But doesn't the minister himself have sight over this? And shouldn't he be the first to say, this is what we are dealing with, and we want to make sure that you know?
You'll never hear me argue with the fact that tone at the top and tone from the top is critically important. So yes, the minister bears a considerable amount of the weight, but you cannot deny that the officials down in the organization have significant influence as well, and they make key decisions.
They can make recommendations and all, but at the end of the day, the buck stops at the minister's desk, and sometimes at the cabinet's desk at the top level. We're going to run to a break. We've got to pay bills. Those of you holding the lines, please do hold. I'm going to get your calls in a minute. I've got to pay these bills right now. This is Hard Copy. Darren Cash is on with me, former senator in the Ingham administration, one who is looking out for the better economy of the Bahamas. We want to talk more on the economy side today, but time is playing another game with us, and we have to talk about where people's heads are. And right now, there's a perception that all ain't well. Things ain't coming together like some people thought they should be. And it's not too late for it to come together. It's just a matter of coordinating properly and making sure that you make the right connections in the government. Not people, but I'm talking about the government makes the right connections with the public, that they're trying to do the right things, and they are doing some things and policy changes. They're making some definite changes that the people will know about in a minute. We're back in just a minute as well.
Your one-stop shop for everything is Haji's, baby. We've got the hookup for you. Haji's, open Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 7 p.m. Sunday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Holidays, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We are stocked with everything. Automotive, electrical, lawn and garden, household, nails and screws for the nailers and the screws, plumbing, paint. We also have grocery items and personal care products. We are located 22 St. Albans Drive. Phone 323-4375 or email myhajis.com.
Boy, this year flying by quick, It'll soon be Christmas.
That's right, and I haven't even started saving yet.
Girl, what you waiting for? Why you don't join BOB's Christmas Club account? They give you higher interest than any other bank. So by Christmas, you'll have lots of money to buy presents for them 3 little rugrats.
That sounds like a great idea. How much do I need to open it?
Only $20, but you have to open it before June 30th.
Bank of the Bahamas Christmas Club account. Get more merry for your money. Only at Bank of the Bahamas, your bank of solutions.
Go west to Life at Hills, Nassau's newest gated community with full amenities, fitness center and tennis courts. Lot starting at $160,000. Life at Hills, West Bay, opposite Old Fort Bay. Call 362-1412, 362-1652 today.
Attention homeowners. Do you have enough coverage for your home and possessions? Well, if you're not sure, maybe it's time you talk to Advantage Insurance. Your property and belongings are probably worth a lot more now than when you first insured them. After all the natural disasters we have experienced, it's more important than ever to be fully protected. Call Advantage Insurance at 356-0285 or visit us on Collins Avenue today. Advantage Insurance, celebrating 20 years of service.
Ah, it tastes so good. Fresh, clear, ultra pure. Available at your neighborhood depot and nearest store. Echo Water, premium distilled. Don't be surprised. It comes in just your size. 20 ounces, 1 and 5 gallons, and 1.5 liters. Echo Water, just what the body needs.
Get excited, Bahamas, as we celebrate our country's 44th birthday.
Wear your colors.
Wave your flag.
Decorate your homes and businesses.
And let's celebrate
the Beat Retreat, Boston and Parliament Squares on Sunday, the 2nd of July at 5:30 p.m.
National Pride Day, Boston and Parliament Squares will be transformed on Friday, the 7th of July. And the Grand Independence Celebration, Clifford Park, on Sunday, the 9th of July at 8 p.m.
Immediately following at 1 a.m., John Canoe, the People's Love and Unity Rush.
Then, the grand finale.
On Monday, the 10th of July, will be a state reception, Government House.
This is an exciting calendar of events you won't want to miss.
Oh, no, I won't. Will you be there?
Of course, I will beat you there. So let's get involved and celebrate our country's 44th birthday together.
What caused Mr. Menace or if anyone all the seats is because of bad management of Mr. Perry Christie. Otherwise, he have to be careful because the promise he made, he got to fulfill all of them.
Here we have the challenges with money and so on and all these national debts are going to pay off, but nobody is talking about the natural resources.
This is what we have to do. Since the Prime Minister cannot do some stuff, collectively, governmentally speaking, they're saying they can't do some stuff no more. We don't have time to wait because people were dying. Those of us in the professional business, whatever you're good at, open the door now. Give these people some licenses to get involved with our visitors.
Welcome back to Hot Copy. I promise, let me get straight to the lines. Hot Copy, you there? Thank you very much. Thanks for holding. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Good evening, Mr. McKinney, and good evening to your guests and all your listeners on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
Great one.
Mr. McKinney, I think it's the first time I call in after the general election.
Well, I was going to give you some extra time because I understand,
Thank you.
So I said, when Papa is ready, he'll call me.
Yes, sir. Mr. McKinney, thanks for the privilege. I appreciate it. So,
yeah, man.
The opportunity, Mr. McKinney. Mr. McKinney, let me start off by saying, Dr. Menace, congratulations to him and, the Free National Movement. But I'll also like to say, if I was Dr. Menace, right, I would stay focused. I would not try to. I hear somebody said something about the way how he deal with the media, and he shouldn't have do this and he shouldn't have do that. But if I was him, if before I say anything, like I try not to be confrontation with them or trying to be rude in any which way or fed up with the way how they keep asking the same question over and over. I mean, and keeping in mind that that's their job to do what they have to do.
Media, yeah.
But say things like, is there any more? If there's no more question, then I have to go because it's the people time. I wouldn't get no mix up with them right now because you understand the media have a job to do in spite of the press. Excuse me. The point, Mr. Anthony Newmold having that position to speak on behalf of either the Prime Minister or the government, and that should be kind of sufficient. You know, knowing that he's a professional media person,
Yes, he is.
he should be able to understand when he's speaking, he say things. So if the media feel like they have to go back there and try to keep asking Dr. Minnis the same question, I would just say, you know, if there isn't any other question, I got to go now because it's the people time, and I would move on because we all know the media. Some of the people, they have an agenda, and not using a broad brush on all of them.
No, you're right. You're right about it.
But just keep in mind that they have agenda, and this ain't no time to waste for 5 years to be round with the media. They want you. I would be thinking as the Prime Minister, they want me to do it. They never did want me. They never thought I could have been Prime Minister anyhow. So I wouldn't even get no confrontation with them. I just would be respectful, nice as possible, and keep remembering it's the people time and doing the people work. Secondly, I didn't vote for, I think that's your good friend of mine who's to be on Sunday with you, Allison Mutri.
Halson Mutri, yeah.
Didn't vote for him. I voted for Prime Minister Christie and the party more than the Dion Smith, the former MP for the area. And I just would like to say congratulations to Mr. Mutri and his team. And, you know, although I didn't support him, I understand now that the majority of us persons in this constituency, now so this constituency, we decide that he is the best person for the next 5 years. So I want to congratulate him and promise and give my every effort I could to make this place a better place, you know, and work along with him as much as I could. One last thing, this is the question for Mr. Cash, if it's possible. Is it unfair, Mr. McKinney or Mr. Cash, for some of us to feel this way, knowing that after I listen to Sparky and others, them talk about how outrageous some of the things what the former government do, and the former Prime Minister, Mr. Christie, as the leader, you know, he has the buck stop and start with him. So I wanted to ask the question. That persons like Prime Minister Christie or anyone who was sitting around the cabinet, including Glenys Arna Martin and Brace Davis, but they were in their seats, so we got to exclude them for right now because only God know why that happened the way it happened, and they make it true to still be in the House Assembly. But the question is, should we take away pension from the former cabinet? All of these outrageous things we hearing, and you know, not just the cabinet, but the leader, Prime Minister Christie, they have a pension there where they give to these prime ministers and stuff like that. Could this government, I know you mightn't be a lawyer, but could they amend the laws in the House Assembly, do something that if it is known and the fact shows that you I call it more than mismanagement. I call it intentionally, like abusing the Bahamian people and the country. You don't deserve no pension. Your assets should be taken away. I don't believe in this country. We ain't fortunate. See, we's a passive set of people in the Bahamas. Mr. Christie, I'm glad to be here in the Bahamas because why? I don't think they will never go to jail. I don't think that personally that us, the people, will ever see a day that we could legally execute them. Then what else next leave to do? Take away their assets. Start with the pension. All of them who sitting around the cabinet. I mean, in Jerome Fitzgerald, I think the other shoe ain't drop on him yet. The other shoe ain't drop yet. To really understand how outrageous he carry on and what he deserved, what deserved to happen, you know, legally through the courts or whatsoever with him. But persons who waiting on their pension, like who done do their 2 terms and whatsoever, including Prime Minister Christie, should we ask a Prime Minister, Dr. Minister, try to amend some kind of law to do it so
to
even
stop
if,
them from getting the pension.
if him and his crew ever do something so outrageous like this, people like Obi Wilscombe and others them who sit around the table. You understand? They don't do 2 terms or whatsoever. Now they waiting on their pensions. The Bahamian people, I mean, look at the kind of things them what they do. Some of them things, some of the money they spend could have saved some homes. All them people they say no to, we can't do this, we can't do that because of money. They could have do it. They do it for their friends, family, and lovers. I am convinced in this country, it ain't no PLC. It's bigger than yellow and red. It's bigger than politics. It's a class issue. It's friends, families, and lovers. It's a circle thing. Either you in it or you out it. But the main thing, us praying people in this country, we get God to thank for just living in this country called the Bahamas, in spite of how I feel. And I agree with some of the people who say, well, take away the pension from Mr. Christie and the former cabinet ministers who waiting on it. In this country called the Bahamas, we are so blessed, man. In spite of all we going through, I have to still say thanks to God first.
and the Progressive Liberal Party as a party and a country for just being there and allowing persons to have opportunity. It's just that some of the persons, some of the people who were serving us in the last 5 years, they get the thing mixed up, man. It's like they enrich themselves, Mr. McKinney. They forget about enriching us, family, friends, and lovers. That's what all it was about. When I hear people like Fred Mitchell talk now that he ain't come to pile nothing on former Prime Minister Christie because he done take the blame for losing the election, and to the new members of Parliament, he's saying this and saying that. I don't know if he's talking to ex-former member of Parliament or Mr. Chester Cooper, excuse me. I don't know if he's talking to him or what, but I just would like to say, people like Fred Mitchell, them, I mean, it's hard to say that you should dismiss when somebody else say, but it's different from agenda. These people, they in denial. They get this thing mixed up. They don't understand this. When you go in the whole assembly, you understand it. It's about betterment the people who you serving, not yourself. It's about betterment the country, giving people opportunities, the kind of things what is being said now from Dr. Minnis and the Free National Movement in those assembly, Mr. McKinney, it'll get anybody sick. Some people done talking, but they ain't never voting again. And, you know, they're ashamed of their party and all of this stuff. All I would like to say, people like Mr. Christie, and Mr. Christie is a good person, a good human being. He ain't the voice of the voice. But your word gotta mean something. You can't come across like a dishonest person. Like the truth is not in you. Misleading people.
I got you, Papa. I hear what you're saying. I appreciate your sentiments, and I'll let Mr. Cash answer your views about whether or not they should have their pensions nullified. Appreciate it.
Let's keep up the good work, Mr. McKinney.
Thank you. All the best. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue of fairness. It is an issue of law.
Yeah, it's a issue of law.
And the fact is, I'm pretty sure the Parliamentary Pensions Act does not speak to if you screw up your job in one ministerial capacity, retroactively, the state can come back and take it. No. But what I think all of this illustrates, the
intolerance of corruption and
but what it illustrates in stark terms is the critical role of a member of Parliament. A member of Parliament is a legislator. His job or her job is to go in there and pass laws. And if we are to be a nation of laws, we've seen enough in the last 5 years for this legislature to be busy doing overtime almost every week in terms of updating, strengthening our laws. And I think if Prime Minister Minnis spends a lot of time in ensuring that his team focuses on strengthening the laws to hold elected and appointed and public officials more accountable, then he will have created himself a good legacy.
Well, Papa, like many Bahamians, believe that something should happen to neutralize anyone collecting pensions after allegedly moving all his other money and wasting it up. He believes there should be some penalty. But you're right, this is a part of the law. And so the bottom line is that no, they perhaps will more than likely get their pension. It just shows you the kind of intolerance that people have now for this high level of corruption and this perception of corruption that is happening in the government of our country. And one writer put it succinctly, Kendia Dames, and I quote a headline here in the paper of the National Review. She says, "Hogs at the trough, a classic case of PLP greed." And Papa was alluding to that when he said that, how these people can still be doing all this stuff, still getting paid, and they can come right back at the end and get some more money. Well, hogs at the trough, a classic case of PLP greed is what she was talking about. And I think that epitomizes where the situation that we found ourselves in the last 5 years in particular.
Steve, I'm old enough now to remember, people, I all for me, baby.
Yeah.
I think was spoken by
Clement Maynard.
I think he was Deputy Prime Minister.
He was Deputy
at
Prime
the
Minister.
time.
Yeah.
And at that same rally was an activist by the name of Code Smith, I think, was heckling at the time.
That's correct.
To the point I think Code got called out from the stage, right? So all for me, baby, this was back in the 80s, I believe, right? And I remind everyone that in 2007, Perry Christie won the general election after losing. I'm sorry, he won in 2002. He lost in 2007. And he lost because of the perception of scandal.
Yes.
Perception of scandal, which seemed to plague his government from day one with the Korean boats.
Yes.
Right? And now he won in 2012. After an age of scandal, he still won in 2012. So the lesson for us is just to remember that, you know, it's not always the ill that the previous guys did, but the government of the day has got to deliver for people. And so I hope that the Prime Minister and his team remain cognizant of the fact that as bad as the PLP may be, or be perceived to be, and as low as they may be perceived to have sunk, 2007 reflected their opportunity to come back, and with a new regime, they can do the same.
It's going to be quite interesting. Thank you very much for turning on my mic. We've just gotten news that Dr. Nottage has passed. PJ Nottage in hospital. And so that is where we are right now. He died about 6:31, short time ago, about half an hour ago. And so we send quick condolences to his family and his loved ones who are mourning his passing, obviously. Dr. Nottage, as you know, was the minister in the last government of national security, and he was also Minister of Education in the Christie administration. He held many positions in the Christie administration, in the actual Honorable House of Assembly, as well as in the actual party caucus of the PLP. We are now understanding that he has passed. He was ill, gravely ill, as they had expressed it. The PLP had expressed that he was gravely ill just recently and had to be, I suppose, moved into the IC unit of the critical care of the hospital. And we understand that he did not pull through and that he has passed. And so we pause for a minute in respect of Dr. Bernard J. Nottage, who had served this country well. A moment of silence. This is Hard Copy Live, and of course, as I told you just now, we just got that news, and so we passed it on to you. Family members, of course, everybody is mourning his loss, as you would imagine. The entire country, I suppose, would be mourning his loss at this particular time. And Darren Cash,
yeah, I just wanted to certainly take this opportunity to extend my condolences to the family of Dr. Nottage.
Absolutely.
Both politically and certainly his immediate family. You know, the heat of politics can be extremely harsh, and it is a good thing that historians get to, in the fullness of time, tell the stories, because in this last general election, Dr. Nottage took a lot of heat.
Certainly.
But I think history will be kind to him when one reflects on the contributions.
Indeed, I think so.
That he has made. Like Dr. Minnis, a successful physician who gave up practice to go into public service, and oftentimes you tend to forget, you know, those kinds of sacrifices that people like that. I think of Ronnie Knowles, another physician who left and went into the public service to make a contribution. Dr. Sands in that same boat. Right now, the previous Minister of Health,
Perry Gomez.
I think had been on the tail end of his profession. But again, you know, Dr. Nottage again will be remembered as one of those who has always been active, who made the sacrifices. I like to remember that he was one of those persons who had the courage to at least publicly voice that he would stand against Lyndon Pinling at one point. but he decided not to throw his hat in the ring and be deferential to Sir Lyndon, and so he didn't do it.
Time,
but I think history will be kind to him.
I certainly believe that history will be kind to him, Darren Cash, just because of the fact that people knew Bernard Knowledge on a personal level in many cases. They had a rapport with him, though they may not have agreed with his politics and all that. They had a rapport with him. The community of Baintown, I'm certain would feel his passing in a big way. Reverend Dr. C.B. Morse would feel his passing in a big way. There are many people who would feel his passing in a big way because he had this connection with people. He was the kind of fellow, because of his days of athleticism, his days in B3As. He used to be the B3A's president for quite a number of years. And because of that, he had a lot of connection with people, sorted that a lot of young people got a chance to get scholarships and stuff like that prior to coming into the government and prior to becoming a minister of education and all those things. So he has built up a good reputation. On a personal note, even with myself as a young journalist and all that, we had good moments together at these Carifta games and things like that. And so my belief is that he is out of this miserable world where there's all this suffering, and that he's gone to a better place. And that's what I'd like to believe, that he's gone to a better place. And, he will be welcome into those places like paradise that we all believe in, because you've got to believe that about a man who, in fact, would have made good contributions in many regards, in many areas. And so we hope that he has gone to a better place, and that we here will be able to at least look at some of the good things that he did, sterling examples that he set in other areas, and do likewise to be like BJ.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I've got a call on the telephone line. I want to take that call. And we had been talking about a number of things that's been happening. We were making the point about the All For Me Baby crowd. And of course, that you kind of like summed that up quite well. And right now, people are concerned about something. The big thing that people are concerned about is that, will the Minnis administration ring true on the things that they talked about in the campaign? A lot of the PLP is now talking about it, have been expressing that no, they cannot, because it was all lies. Glennis Hannah Martin, one of the architects of saying that it was just foolishness, and that now people are calling on Carl Bethel, someone who we haven't really discussed in great detail, about what you're going to do and what is it that he is saying. Is it his call to make at this particular early time that, maybe there's nothing objectionable, or there's no evidence of criminality for him to go and begin prosecutions or begin an investigation. I think he came back some days later and said it another way that made it seem as if, okay, he's decided to let the police and them handle that job, and if they find something, they bring it to him, he'll see what could happen. But he did say that he did not at that particular time see any reason for anything to happen, because he didn't read anything. Nothing was said in what he read, and I suppose he was talking about the newspapers. But we want to get to that point in just a minute. Let me see if this caller is here. Hard copy, you there? Are you there? Okay, I'm sorry, I lost your call. You perhaps could call us back. But Darren, this is where we are. I mean, people are still believing that maybe they're just in a position where they say, I can't believe that this fella said that, and he's supposed to be an FNM, is what people say on one breath. These are people who are just commenting that, what you mean you don't, listen, get something done, because the expectation of people is that somebody, as I tell you, the narrative has been somebody got to go to jail. And I don't know if the Minnis administration, we laugh at it, but do you suppose the Minnis administration could have played into that? Members of the parliament, members who were elected to the cabinet, members who were making the contribution to the debate, do you suppose that they would have played into that narrative, that expectation that somebody going up to Fox Hill?
When the indications of wrongdoing, I'm not talking about someone just made some poor decisions and wasted money, but the indications of wrongdoing are so intense, are so pervasive, it would be a dereliction of duty for any government of the day not to pursue it to its logical conclusion. Now, it's important for the Attorney General more than anybody else to be measured in what he says, because he, more than anybody else, understands that these are going to be matters of law, did somebody break the law?
The law.
And there are some acts that are performed that are tortious acts. They are matters that individuals must bring against officials.
Exactly.
That these are not criminal matters that the state will be able to bring. That's just the reality.
of it, yeah.
And so it's important for the process to play out. I will tell you that there is equal suspicion when it comes to this matter as there is when it comes to whether the government will have the courage to break the insiders game, as in family, friends, and lovers. You know, but there is equal concern that people will fall victim to this. We're a small country, and to take this to its logical conclusion, mommy and uncle and Grammy will get caught up in it, and what good is that gonna
That's
do
why I keep saying, boy, these people seem to mean business. I mean, because they would have had to calculate, Darren Cash, that you know, this may not just run the gamut of some PLPs. This may run the gamut across all political divides and all religious divides and everything else, and come full circle back into your family, and you found out your brother was there with something, and your sister and your mommy.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but the point is, there are people who want this to happen so bad. It seems as if they don't care where the chips fall. Let them fall where they may, because people are sick and tired of being able to be paying all these bills and taxes. And they saw the kind of runaway train that these guys had with the people's purse, the public's purse.
And let the chips fall where they may is one of those areas where the Minnis government has got to be prepared to demonstrate the courage to let it happen.
You know, people are saying if they don't, that they shouldn't expect to be around.
No,
do you play to that same?
I feel that, no, I certainly feel that way. I am personally of the view, I am not interested in the titillating revelations anymore. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, because you know, we basically knew most of this stuff. You know that we knew.
Yeah. And so when you come to Parliament and tell me about this person did this and this person that did that, and you're not calling any names, and I'm not interested.
No, nobody's interested.
I want to know that the law is going to follow its course. And I posted something on social media the other day, and I want to repeat that. I'm not impressed by the Commissioner of Police's new unit. I'm not impressed.
This anti-corruption unit.
Yeah, I'm not impressed because the commissioner has got to prove himself to me. I was chairman of the party when I saw the commissioner did some kabuki dancing, suggesting that the FNM government that had just been kicked out of office had in some way tied his hands and prevented him from doing something. And
now he's here saying about he's not surprised about all this allegation.
You know, so a new unit doesn't impress me. If you and I'm not interested in you sending something to some office for some political person to make a judgment that, oh dang, and do this to Grammy and Auntie and Sue and go and do that.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Absolutely.
Right? Because as I said, the Commissioner of Police had files before on multiple persons, but one prominent politician.
I remember.
Prominent.
Yes, and
who stood up in the House of Assembly when the heat started getting really, really intense and say, boy, this can be a tough period for me. And then what happened? Some political person, we believe, made the call or the directive.
Leave that alone. Leave that alone.
Wait for that. Wait for that.
Yeah. No.
So I'm not interested in the titillating revelations in the House or the Senate. Let me know when the investigation has started. I want to know who got the 15 contracts they were not entitled to. And here's the key piece, Steve. We keep pointing to the politicians. The system is corrupt. The system is failing.
I agree.
See, from one ministry to the next, some accounting person had to prepare the documents. Some senior officer had to sign off on the documents that went to Treasury. Some senior person in Treasury had to do the processing. Some senior person in Treasury had to sign the check. All of those people cannot be given a shaking of the finger and say, don't do it again, if they violated policies.
Exactly.
And we ought to see some specific changes to policies. If there were no policies that permitted at least 2 or 3 different levels within a ministry to be a part of some crooked scheme, or some wasteful scheme with no accountability. That's how
incredible
deep the need is for us to fix this system. So I'm not interested in the titillation. I want to know the specifics of what we're going to be doing to fix it and who we're going to be held accountable. And if no illegality happened, if it was only a matter of all the systems broke down or there were no systems, then we need to fix it. How many times you hear this government borrowing money from the IDB for strengthening of this and strengthening of that?
Yeah, and it's
Where the
still
hell the money, sorry, where the money gone if things still as weak as they are now?
Absolutely, absolutely. We got a lot of work to do, Darren Cash.
A lot of work,
and that's why this is no laughing.
Vacation, man.
There's no laughing matter.
Work.
They should not be. Listen, I cannot say a man should take a break, but I'm saying it should be a short break. They should have some time off to catch themselves, get a little fresh air, breathe, take the family on a little quick trip, and get back to town. But they need to be working. This has got to be the summer of work. This, this time we're looking at something like, you remember the summer of 42? You wouldn't remember, but that's what they call it, the summer of 42. This has to be the summer of 17, and the summer of 17 has to be epitomized by the kind of work that has to happen in the governance of the country to shore things up. It is not a summer of going on the beach and swimming and playing in the sand or getting some sunshine. No, this is the summer of serious labor. This is government in the sunshine working, because we have to bring it all together. And it's in their best interest, isn't it? Wouldn't it be in their best interest that this is what is supposed to happen? You get it together, you do some extra overtime, you work a little extra, so that when you get back into the beat of the governance of this country, they say, boy, they look like they come back ready. But if you go take this protracted vacation and go off to Timbuktu or wherever you go, and then you come back and there's this lazy attitude toward which you're going, and you get to go back to the House of Assembly debating these things that we can't understand what you're talking about. You need to now sit down and write this. These are the policies that we're going to implement. We're going to fix this, fix that, fix that. The first thing we can tackle is this, that, that in finance. Then we can tackle this. Then we have to make sure, commensurate with that, we got this immigration thing right here. We got to get this immigration thing tied down. We've got to make sure that we got the same time tied down this crime thing. This is how we can do it. These are topics and situations that the Bahamian people want satisfied. And they are not waiting for 5 years for that. They want to see action on those things now. Would you agree?
I agree. I mean, Bahamians spend a lot of time, and I certainly do, looking at North American politics. And you can just go back to 2009 when you had a new president come in, and when it wasn't intense focus on healthcare, it was saving the auto industry. It was a new stimulus package. It was changing laws that were discriminating against women and so on. And so, again, a very clear agenda of action items aimed at dealing with the big issues. And again, we say priority one has got to be, what is the leader of the country going to do to focus on revitalizing major economies in this country, New Providence and Grand Bahama. And I think, you focus on the low-hanging fruit, and that's a good place to start. Perry Christie, when he spoke at the Bahamas Business Outlook, and then he did it and later in the Business Outlook presentation, used to go down his laundry list of projects that were going to be coming on stream in the Family Islands and so on. There wasn't a lot of confidence in them, but at least those were things where specific investors had expressed some confidence.
And you want to woo the investor. You want to make them see and understand that you're on the move. You're doing things. You're engaging people. And at the same time, you want to make sure that they know that we have labor laws in our country, because that's another thing. When people come in, they expect that they just got carte blanche, they can do what they feel like. There are labor laws in our country, and there should be even a law. Somebody suggested that there should be a law, Darren Cash, that where we can look at Bahamianization as part of policies that we're looking for, and make sure there's a Bahamianization policy included in everything that we do going forward. Because by that, they're talking about the fact that we've got to keep in mind that who are we building this country for? What is this country for? If it's not for the citizens of the Bahamas, and they should have a full share in their participation of it, then you've got to actually enunciate it. Put it in there and say, and remember, there's Bahamianization in all these laws. We have a focus that we want to develop and grow our country.
I'm a strong advocate for Bahamianization. But at the same time, I recognize that we live in a global community.
Yes, of course.
And almost every organization has its tentacles in multiple nations. And so it's important for Bahamians to appreciate that workforces today, whether it's in the financial services sector, the tourism sector, or in the education sector, the workforce is going to be diversified. And it's in our interest to be diversified. And so at the same time, we've got to protect the interest of Bahamians who are looking for work, but we ought to also acknowledge that foreign nationals can make and will make a significant contribution. We've just got to have the courage to make sure that scale is always balanced or tipped in favor of Bahamians at all times, and it is a matter of public policy when it gets out of kilter.
People are still sending me all kinds of text messages along the lines of the budget of the Free National Movement, and they're saying here that the budget wasn't for the poor man. That's a criticism that they've been getting. They've been ignoring it too. They've not been talking about that, even though people have said it. And in some cases, we can see what they're saying, but in many cases, they tried their best on a number of things. But listen to this. The fellow says the budget wasn't for the poor man. It says washing machines, and he says for superwash. He's angling the angler, right? Yes. He says airplane parts for Sky Bahamas. He's dangling and messing with Peter Turnquist, who is a shareholder in Sky Bahamas. And then he says business license tax reductions for every businessman who turned in over $50 million. He said that ain't for no poor fella, that's for them other fellas. This is how people look at these things and extrapolate from it and say, this is what you all are doing. You all ain't for us. We the poor and the lonely is what some people are trying to perpetrate out there.
Let me counter all three of them, right? I carry no brief for any of the gentlemen, but let's do let's do the washing machine. Superwash is one of numerous washing houses on this island, right? All people go to Superwash
absolutely
to wash their clothes
every day,
right? The question is going to be whether lowering the duty is going to cause Superwash and others to lower their prices in. If they don't, then that incentive ought to fall away, right? Average Bahamians jump on Sky, Western, Pineapple to travel to the Family Islands to the extent that we can make the cost of travel to the Family Islands more cost effective. That works for all of us. But as we seek to get tourists from North America into New Providence and into the Family Islands, I come back to one of the things Vincent Van der Poel Wallace used to talk about a lot: the price of moving from Boston to South Eleuthera. Expensive. So to the extent that someone can get a cheap flight into Boston and a cheap flight out of Boston into New Providence and a cheaper flight into the Family Island, works well for us, particularly in this period of us doing Bahamians travel at home. And I think the last one was with the tax breaks to the larger companies. Let's pick a food store. Any food store that gets a tax break, and let's say the break wasn't on bread basket items as everyone was expecting, but geez, for goodness sake, they make grapes a lot cheaper than they were before. So you get to at least buy the grapes or the corned beef a little cheaper. If we hold the owners accountable for passing those savings along,
down to us,
if we hold them accountable for passing the savings along, then those kinds of incentives given to the rich man can be beneficial to the poor man. Now, if you just said none of that happened, we're just going to take taxes off of breadbasket items, the impact from a overall standpoint, government loses revenue. That doesn't necessarily increase the circulation of money. So there's an argument, but what this points to is, boy, these guys are doing a bad job of defending their.
That's
their
correct, and they've got to get out
priorities.
there and talk. And one of the things too that's a very, very fair criticism. I don't know if it's a mandate that may be quietly spoken, but the ministers have not been appearing on these shows and having public engagement. They better get started doing that, because I'll tell you, I can tell you this is true. I speak with my colleagues. This is true. They got another week so to start showing some form, and then it'll start all hanging out. Now, you don't have to believe me. Just watch it. And showing form means that all of Renwood Wells and them, I could call his name because I know what I'm talking about. They need to get moving, get these engagements going, get focused, talk to the people. Let's hear what you have decided that's going to happen in some of these ministries. You got a chance. Let's get moving. And if you don't do it, you can't blame nobody, because this is now, you are now in charge, my friend. You are the government. And so the same goes straight across the board. Dr. Dwayne Sands, Romy Ferreira. See, these are hot button items that people want to engage on. Not no little commentary passing with you can't be challenged. You got to come and sit down and talk. Face the music. Talk what you're saying. Understand what's happening. No sound bites. No. And now I'm always here with a lending, with an understanding ear. But we have work to do as well for the people of this country. It's our job to draw it out.
A significant way of managing expectations is to communicate.
That's how you do it.
Communicate.
Yeah. And you say, well, Steve, we were trying to do this. We found this out, so we couldn't do it now. What we are looking at, we're doing this. They have to come out and engage the public. They are now in charge of this country. And so people are expecting that to happen. I know many of them, and I respect all of them. And I will tell you that I know that it's a missing thing. It's missing on them. They need to get moving.
I suggest they pay a visit to Algernon Allen to learn how it's done to communicate.
Absolutely.
and to share your priority and to get it.
You have to.
To be a part of the psyche of the populace.
Because if you don't do that, you hear these people bickering now, that's going to get to a crescendo, my friend. That bickering that's starting out small, but listen, you don't want these people vexation, because 5 years is a long time to be taking chafing from these fellas. I can tell you that. And I said it with love, because I care what happens. Like I said earlier in my summary of this whole thing, I support the government of the Bahamas. I want to see them do well. I want to see them achieve. But no one can expect people to achieve if they're talking jive talk, if they're not sober and serious about what they're doing, if the whole idea of what this real thing is not settled on them, and they realize, boy, we got to get moving. We expect that the senior men and the groupings would begin the process of bringing that group along, because we want to see them succeed. I leave it there. What do you want to say to leave it there?
The final point I want to make is that I always come back to education is a critical component of how we're going to grow this economy. The new leadership at the National Training Agency, I think, is a good step in the right direction. The enthusiasm that Mr. Lloyd brings to education is a good step in the right direction. They have got to focus their energies in a way that in 5 to 10 years, we can revamp our educational system. I do not believe that we are setting our basket high enough in terms of student achievement, and not just academic achievement, but student achievement overall. And if we focus appropriately on transforming our educational system, on training and development, we're going to increase our odds of success.
I appreciate it. Darren Cash with me here today on Hard Copy, and it's been quite interesting and informative and certainly encouraging because, you know, we've heard some good things today, and we wish, as I said, the government very well, but it takes two. You know, you've got this give and take on this whole matter. It's always give and take. It's never just you give, or it's just not taken, but this has to be give and take. The public want to be engaged. They've got many questions. They want to see where the government's going, and they want to feel where the government's going. And so I leave it there today. All right, Stevie, let's go home. Hey. Boy, you strike up that music nice and loud today. Stevie J, we thank you so much for a good production here again. And of course, on the show today, our sponsors has been, as they always are, the people who make it happen. Hadji's and Albans Drive, Bank of the Bahamas, Bank of Solutions, Assemblies of God, Mount Tabor's Inspiration, Bahamas for the Ninth on Blake Road, Super Value, Rocky Farms Nursery on Seabreeze Lane. Boy, they got all the plans up there to make your home look good for independence this time around. Water and Sewage, Ministry of Tourism, Echo Water, Commonwealth Bank, Cool Tech, the Heyman Brewery and Beverages, Super Wash open 24/7, Advantage Insurance on 61 Collins Avenue, Ron's Electric Motors on Carriage and Wolf Road, Executive Printers on Durham Avenue, and the McKinney Media Group for the best results in advertisement, public relations, and consultation. You see us first. Tomorrow on the show, we'll be back here again at 5 o'clock. I don't have my shirt in front of me, but I know that we have a big guest. And so tomorrow, you'll be a part of it at 5 o'clock. Let's talk and see what exactly where we're going to take this country in the next few years. Good night from Hard Copy. God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.